I hope you can hear the cicadas, because they're like uber loud. Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I just want to preface this video. You're going to hear cicadas noise in the background because I'm not in my home. I'm at my grandmother's house and she has a super big garden and lots of cicadas. It's summer. I am actually happy to hear the sound because it means summer. So today we're going to be doing a super fun video, and it is for every Ghibli movie I'm going to recommend you a book. Super fun video. I'm a huge Miyazaki fan. Let's get started. Before we begin, as always, links to petitions, donations, and all links that could help LGBTQIA+ people will be in the description. I will also link some other fun stuff down below, so just check them out and then come back. I'm just going to say there are 3 Ghibli movies that I haven't watched, and those are Only Yesterday, Ocean Waves, and My Neighbors the Yamadas. Oh, and also The Cat Returns. So for those I won't be giving book recommendations, also because this list is super long and there are so many books, as you will see. So let's start. For the first movie ever made by the Ghibli studio is Nausicaa of the Valley of Wind, and for that I'm going to recommend Born by Jeff Vandermeer. It's super shiny. I know that I've talked about Jeff Vandermeer a lot, but it's one of my favorite authors for a reason. This book talks about our world that has been wrecked by nature and biotechnology that we created. And a scrap hunter named Rachel finds this very mutated creature, child type-like, that is called Born, or she calls it Born. And her with her partner try to raise it in a world that is like post-apocalyptic. It's super wrecked. Also, there is a genetically mutated bear called Mort that has been like rampaging through the territory, and it's been like very violent with people. So they're trying to raise Born, but also they're discovering that Born could be used as a weapon, and they want to uncover the mystery of him being there. If you know, Nausicaa of the Valley of Wind is a very environmentally advocating movie, and I think the nature and biotechnology aspect are really similar. Also, the feel of the book is very similar of Nausicaa. Next, for Castle in the Sky, I'm going to recommend a book by Luke Pearson, and it's Hilda and the Stone Forest. Here. This is a graphic novel. This is the 5th volume of the story, but you could also like read them not in chronological order. Hilda is a very young child that lives with her mother, and they live in this very magical valley inhabited by kind of not mythological but like strange creatures. In this instance, Hilda gets transported into the stone forest populated by stone trolls, and she gets body swapped with a stone troll, and she has to get herself home. If you know anything about Castle in the Sky, it is populated by these weird stone creatures that really reminded me of Hilda. The feel is also the same. I'm going to go about this recommendations list a lot about, you know, the feeling of the movie and the book. So yeah, super recommended. Next, for My Neighbor Totoro, I'm going to recommend Whitewood by Colin Malloy. This is the 3rd volume. The first one is just called Whitewood. This is Whitewood Imperium. This is the story of a girl whose little tiny baby brother gets kidnapped by crows and gets taken into the Whitewood. That is a very deep forest where anybody who goes in there never comes back, and she wants to get her brother back. So she, with the help of her friend Curtis, goes into the Whitewood, and they discover that it's populated by these like humanoid animals that they form this society that is at war, and they have to rescue the brother. And this childlike wonder that Totoro gives me is the same as this. And it's like all about nature and strange creatures and fluffy creatures, just like Totoro, so super recommended. Next, for Grave of the Fireflies, I'm going to recommend a very popular book that everybody knows. It's The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. We're following a girl called Liesel, and the story is told by Death. And we're following her in the Nazi Germany, and she begins to steal books from the book burning. And it's as heartbreaking as Grave of the Fireflies. That movie was so crushing. Just, I will never watch it again because I watched it with my friend Sarah, and it was like heartbreaking, beautiful, but never again, please. Next, for Kikis delivery service, I'm going to recommend a book from my childhood, and it's Cornelia and the Audacious Escapades of the Somerset Sisters. This story talks about a girl that is the child of two like world famous pianists, and she is very much lonely, and she surrounds herself with her love for dictionaries. Very weird. But then she encounters her neighbor, her new neighbor, that is this beautiful glamorous woman, Somerset, and she begins to tell her all the stories of her and her sisters going on adventures all around the world, and it's so cute. And the protagonist here very much reminds me of Kiki. They also have a cat in the story. It's not the protagonist, is the neighbors, but it's like Gigi. It's so similar to the cat Gigi, so it was so cute. Now for my favorite ghibli movie, that is Porco Rosso. I'm going to recommend an Italian graphic novel called Al sole come I gatti by Met the Baroni. This is the recollection of the author childhood in Rome, the like hidden Rome, the one that you know only if you live there. And I haven't chosen this book because of the story, I have chosen because of the feel of this hidden Italy that you can only see if you live there, just like in Porco Rosso. The same wonder, the same beauty that you can find in the movie, I think you can find in this graphic novel. Now, a super fun movie that nobody talks about, it's Pompoko. And for this, I'm going to recommend actually a manga that is in a weird format actually. This is Tokyo Alien Bros by Keiko Shinzo. This story talks about two extraterrestrial aliens that come to Earth and try to disguise themselves as humans, but they don't know anything about humans. And they have to decide if their race is fit for the planet to invade. And they try like Earthlings costumes, but they're like so bad at them, and also they cannot maintain their form if they eat or touch salt. I think it was salt. This has the same humorous aspect as Pompoko. It also has the same shape-shifting theme, because Pompoko talks about tanukis, so it was great. Now, another one of my favorites, Whisper of the Heart. For this I'm going to recommend Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukagawa, or An, just An. This story talks about Sentaro, who is a failed writer and a man who has a criminal past, like little crimes. And he sells dorayaki. That is until this really old lady called Tokue comes, and she's like, I make the best sweet bean paste, or An, of the world. I want to work with you. And they begin to work together, and they form this beautiful friendship. But then you rediscover that the old lady Tokue has a very dark secret about her past. I very much enjoy Japanese translated literature because Japanese and Italian have a very similar, like, not structure but feel to it as a language, more so than Italian and English. And you can hear that when you talk in Italian and Japanese. The story has the same like warm, fuzzy feel to it, and the fact that in Whisper of the Heart the protagonist wants to be a writer, and it's the same in Sweet Bean Paste, it was like delightful. For Princess Mononoke, I'm going to recommend a book that I've talked about a lot. I'm sorry, I love this book so much. It's Silver in the Woods by Emily Tash. I'm going to link the video in which I talk about this book, and you will see why I love it. This story talks about a very old being that is tied to a forest, and he lives there as not an old man but as an adult with a cat, a scented cat, and his dryads. Great. And then there is like this explorer writer that wants to know the past of this man called Henry Silva, and it's bit of a romance between them. The dynamics between these two characters, I think it's the same. It's the same as the dynamic between Princess Mononoke and the protagonist of the movie. So next, for Spirited Away, I have two recommendations. I'm going to like briefly mention them. One is Vagabondaggio by Zhao Dao. This is a graphic novel that talks about food and Chinese mythology. The drawings are phenomenal, so beautiful, and it has the same attention to detail that Spirited Away has. Miyazaki always told his audience, I love small gestures because they pack so much like feel to them, and this is the same. The other one is a manga called XxXHolic by Clamp. Don't let the XXX like fool you. It's not about anything like R-rated. It's about our protagonist Watanuki. He can see spirits and he's constantly plagued by them, and he comes into the shop where a very mysterious lady called Yuko tells him that if he wants this ability to go away, the spirits to just like leave him alone, he can pay a price and she will grant him his wishes, and that's what she does for a living. And so he begins to work for her as his payment method. So it's also this mysterious, wacky, yet very deeply sad and emotional adventures that Watanuki goes through. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, Howl's Moving Castle. Did you know that Howl's Moving Castle is based on a book by Diana Wynne-Jones that is also a trilogy, and that in book 2 and 3, Howl and Sophie, they behave like an old married couple? Because it's great. I very much recommend you read the books and you watch the movie. But for that, I'm going to actually recommend another manga that is called Mahoutsukai no Yome, or The Ancient Magus Bride, but sorry, I have to read it, Korei Yamazaki. This story talks about Chise, who is an orphan girl, and she is ostracized by her foster family, and she sells herself in an auction to the ancient magus, and he takes her as an apprentice. And all this because she can see spirits and nobody else can see them, so she has like this spark of real vivid magic. The animation for the adaptation really reminds me of Howl's Moving Castle. The colors, the way that the characters move and they talk, it's like super similar, and it also translates very, very well into the manga. Now, a movie that nobody talks about because it's super confusing, but Tales from Earthsea. Did you know that it's also a book by Ursula K. Le Guin? Nobody talks about Ursula K. Le Guin when it comes to fantasy, but she's the queen of fantasy. And I don't know why nobody talks about it. Don't let it fool you. It's not the first book. These are all 5 of the books of this like cycle. You have to read them chronologically, but I recommend that you only read the first 3 because the last 2 are add-ons. They're boring. I don't like them. First 3, beautifully written. If you like The Name of the Wind, this is a very, very similar story. This talks about Jed or Ged, I don't know which way it's pronounced, but he is a magician, the most powerful magician of all Earthsea. He tells you the story of his youth when he was very knowledge hungry and he was so impatient to learn magic. And this magic system is super interesting because it's based on real names. You call the things their real names and they come to you. So real names are very powerful for people. So his true name is Ged or Jed, but he makes others call him Sparrow and nobody has to know his real name. Super beautiful. I actually really love the movie, even though it's confusing because I've read the book first, so I kind of understood where all the characters and things were coming from. I recommend that you only read the first 3 and then you watch the movie and then you come back and thank me. For Ponyo, I'm going to recommend another manga, and this is, I'm going to like like this, because it's like this. This is Aria by Amano Kozue. This story, I'm going to, yeah, like this, like a poster, like a purse. This story talks about we as a civilization have colonized Mars, but it's now called Aqua, and the protagonist Akari goes to Mars to live from Earth, and she established herself in Neo Venezia, who is Neo Venice, and the city is the exact same copy of Venice, and she wants to be a gondolier. If you know anything about Venice, gondoliers are traditionally only men, and here, traditionally, only women. And she gets into this organization that teaches her how to be a gondolier, but she's very clumsy. If you watched the anime as the most beautiful soundtrack I've ever heard, I'm going to link it down below because it's so incredibly beautiful. You have to listen to it. You have to read the manga. You have to watch the anime. It's so good. Now, for Arietti, this is also based on a book called The Borrowers, but I'm going to recommend a book that is similar to The Borrowers. This is Attica by Gary Kelsworth, or Tre Soffitte in Italian. This book talks about 3 siblings. They move into a new home and they find into the attic there is a portal to another world, and it's a super creative world that uses like everyday objects like fabrics and books and lamps of scraps, and it turns them into a beautiful magical world. It has been described as for a fan of The Borrowers, so perfect recommendation. From Up on Poppy Hill, another favorite of mine. I'm going to recommend another graphic novel. This is Soul Guy by Goro. This story talks about Grim Reapers. There's a Grim Reaper that collects souls, and then he makes you see what was the life like for that soul and why it is now past. And it's a bunch of short stories. The art is incredibly beautiful, beautiful pastel colors, and most of them are centered around school, and this is why it reminded me of From Up on Poppy Hill, but it also has this really nostalgic feel to it, that it's the same from the movie to this graphic novel. For The Wind Rises, I have a little bit of a weird recommendation. This is an Italian book called Maidala Express by Pier Domenico Baccalario and Davide Morosinotto. This story talks about a girl called Finally. I know, weird name, not in Italian, but it's a weird name in English. And this society really values trains because they are like the biggest luxury and commodity to transport yourself from one point to another. And she, along with a thief here on the cover, called Len, they get to go onto the Magdala Express, which is the only train that is not like government controlled and that can take you anywhere. This story is about trains, The Wind Rises is about planes, but the main characters are so similar. Also, the dynamics between the 2 characters is very sweet. Not at the beginning, but then it gets to be very sweet. And it's the same dynamics that it's between the 2 characters of The Wind Rises that are real people. The Wind Rises tells you a real story, if you didn't know, about the Zero airplanes. So yeah, beautiful. Also, an Italian book I'm representing for a super beautiful movie, that it's The Tales of the Princess Kaguya. I have a popular book that it's The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Eva Lavender. I loved it. It was so beautiful. It tells you the story of 3 women from the same family, like 3 generations of women, and they all have like little encounters with magic, but it's interwoven with reality. And the main story is about Eva Lavender, who is born with bird wings. And if you know the tale of the Princess Kaguya, she is born from the moon, and it's all about Eva Lavender having these deep feelings of being very alone, but then finding love, and then who knows? The same deep sadness that I felt from the book, it's the same from the movie, and also the way that it's written at Lavender really reminded me of the way that the Tales of the Princess Kaguya is drawn? If that makes sense, I hope I make sense. And then we come to the last movie. It's when Marnie was there, which, if you know, me and my friend Greta, we always joke that me, when I had like really short hair, and she are exactly the same as the two protagonists, which is super weird. For this, I'm going to recommend you another manga that it's March Comes In Like a Lion. This story, beautiful. It has an anime adaptation, also beautiful. It talks about a professional shogi player. He is also in high school, so he's very, very young, and he lives alone, again ostracized by his foster family because his parents have died, and he is a very, very lonely boy, and he finds solace in his loneliness with his friends that consist of 3 sisters that live with their grandpa and their 2 always hungry cats. I love their dynamics, they're so sweet with each other. And then his fellow shogi friends players, it was so powerful, and the same like raw emotion that I felt with Rei, I felt with the movie, and so beautiful. We have finally arrived at the end of my video. It was probably a very long video, so if you're here, comment down below, I don't know, if you liked it, if you maybe have watched these movies, and if you want to read these books, because I know they're very niche books. I like very weird niche translator books, and that's my brand, apparently. I hope you will join me in my next video when I make it. I don't have an intro, I don't really have an outro, so I will see you then. Goodbye!